Live your life, boy.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Conspiracy Farm, where we don't start the conspiracies, we just add the water. And now, your host of the most state-of-the-art, most informed podcast on the interweb, I present to you Pat Miletich and Jeffrey Wilson. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for war?
Yeah, rear naked choke a Cocker Spaniel, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Bro.
Change the neighborhood up.
Conspiracy Farm. Go. Check it out.
All right, Jeffrey and I are back again. We are riding together without a guest right now because we periodically do these newspaper articles, the headlines, the things going on behind the scenes that we want to get into detail about a myriad of different subject matter. And there's a lot going on, Jeff. There's a lot going on. As always, the lunatics in the crystal cathedrals, the crystal castles, the elites are constantly conjuring stuff up, right?
Yeah, man, we're dealing with some dark artists, man, and we're gonna get into a little bit of it today, as it mostly relates to our children. But you know, we probably will spin off into some other stuff. But what do you got on the plate there?
Well, I mean, ultimately, it always comes back to the children, no matter what. And what we would hope is that over almost 3 years of this ridiculousness, that some fathers would step up and stand up for their children's freedoms. I mean, this is what I've tried to explain to people from early on is, look, man, stand up early, stand up, get it done, and go through a little bit of pain early on and shut this stuff down. But people just aren't aware enough, obviously. Their loops of information are different than ours. The glasses that they wear, the lenses that they view the world is obviously much different than ours. And so, you know, we are where we are. So we just try to urge people, look, there are some things coming down the pipe here, and there's some things that you can do along with your neighbors and community members to not allow it to happen. Just simply peaceful non-compliance, right, Jeff?
No, without a doubt. And I know this is something that has bothered you for some time. I mean, any paternal instinct is going to kick in and want to protect your children. And we've been dealing with this for some time now, a lot of the madness. And I know, I know that's been something that's bothered you. And, I don't know if there's any way for people to chime in, go to our Twitter page and follow us on Self-Defense Warrior podcast. It's on there. You can find it. But just chime in on your thoughts on this. I was saying, most moms and dads do definitely want to protect our children.
Excuse me.
But we've seen the blatant assault on them for many years now, like you said. And I've thought to myself, even though a lot of our hearts and minds are in the right place, I think we've just gotten way too comfortable. As moms, dads, as just people in our country, the standard that we used to have of like, I don't know if you've seen the viral video of F around and find out. You know what I mean? It's like, your proportion of finding out is going to be the proportionate to how much you've effed around. And they've effed around for a long time and they just haven't found out because there's been no real clapback. And a lot of that, I found it so scary, especially during the school board meetings, when you saw the mama bear standing up. I thought that was going to be like some serious smoke that they were going to see when the mama bears start clapping back at these school board meetings, but they wound up labeling them as potential domestic terrorists. And I think it's just next level insanity to label somebody who's trying to protect their kids against some of this stuff. But I don't know, man. We're like you said, we're in crazy times, and there's more to come as we're going to get into this article you sent me today, which is essentially if anybody knows about what Event 201 was leading up to the pandemic and COVID, et cetera, they have a version 2 coming along that Pat's going to get into. We're going to talk a little bit about it.
Yeah. So the alarming rhetoric that's in this, yeah, it's mind-numbing. So here's catastrophic contagion. Johns Hopkins University, Center for Health Security, in a partnership with World Health Organization and, of course, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who were part of Event 201, conducted catastrophic contagion, yes, a pandemic tabletop exercise at the Grand Challenges annual meeting in Brussels, Belgium on October 23rd, 2022. The extraordinary group of participants, listen how they talk about themselves, the extraordinary group of participants,
of course,
consisted of 10 current and former health ministers and senior public health officials from Senegal, Rwanda, Nigeria, Angola, Liberia, Singapore, India, Germany, as well as Bill Gates, co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I didn't know that Bill was a health expert or ever was. If he was, he would have been teaching people how to grow food and dig wells in Africa. Instead, he was injecting them.
Well, it's interesting that he viruses out of his software, but yeah, he's trying to tell us how to keep viruses out of our body. But, we digress. But, and again, those players you just mentioned, Johns Hopkins, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, WHO, these are the exact same players who simulated or basically conducted the event 201. And again, if people are going to be like, hey, these kind of preemptive war games to kind of see how we would behave in certain scenarios, I mean, I get that. But the fact that when COVID popped off, it was Event 201 with all these players saying the exact way how COVID was going to play out. Supposedly it was a wet market, whatever it was the exact same thing saying that COVID was. And it was just a little bit too coincidental because at the same time, Bill Gates was running a docuseries on Netflix on surviving a pandemic or something like that. This is all within weeks of everything really popping off. So it's very alarming to see these. Exactly.
Again, I've been involved in television for 15 years and you've been involved in film and television. It's called a rehearsal for what you know is coming. It's pretty simple.
For sure.
Obviously, knowing that, then you automatically know it was a bioweapon that was released and then just enough to scare the shit out of people. And then the real bioweapon was, of course, going to be developed, which we talked about in the injections. And therefore the solution was to not get the injection. And if we rewind, never put the mask on and never lock your business down. Therefore they have no reason to print trillions of dollars and put us into an economic tailspin. Right? Then the bankers don't have an excuse. All of it's tied together.
No, it is. And we're still feeling the effects of it. But now here they are, essentially years later. I saw a post or some article about how there's more people in the hospital now, not from COVID, but from the flu and from this new something else, some kind of another respiratory infection that's apparently having people hospitalized in huge numbers. I talked to a gentleman the other day. He knows a doctor, and he said he had within the week, he had 175 kids in his office for whatever this new respiratory infection is. So we're obviously seeing this. This is just one doctor.
Yeah. Now this is where, an email went out from the Bettendorf, Iowa school, the public school system to parents. And I still have one child left in the public school system. And it said, there's been considering the high numbers of sicknesses that we have going on in the Bettendorf school system. So there's a huge spike. Now, of course, a couple of weeks ago, the flu vaccine was given to, a massive number of children within the Bettendorf school system. I asked my 9-year-old how many kids actually got up and walked to the gymnasium to be lined up for this, flu vaccine. And I said, how many kids stayed in the room with you? And she said, I think it was 3. So the vast majority of her classmates, after the past 3 years, nearly 3 years, of being able to actually seek out information and hear it, people are still lining their children up to get inoculated with whatever they're putting in these poor children's bodies. And so here's where the rest of this. Sorry.
Before COVID, the flu vaccine was so blissfully ineffective. No, I'm sorry. The flu vaccine normally every year, even before COVID, was blissfully ineffective
every time. I've said it for decades.
Well, they don't know which strain of the avian flu, which is essentially the flu that we're going to have this year. So they're just literally playing Russian roulette with our lives, and especially our children's lives.
They mix 4 or 5 antiquated versions of the flu, and they'll inject it in everybody. And, you see the signs everywhere at all the stores and everything and the pharmacies and, get your flu vaccine, get your flu vaccine, get your flu vaccine. And then everybody ends up getting the flu, right? And then in the spring they go, it turns out, we didn't get it right again this year. Every single year. Every year. Right? And people just aren't aware enough to catch on. And it's very troubling. But here's the rest of the language, these 2 paragraphs. This is where it gets alarming.
Yeah.
The exercise simulated a series of World Health Organization Emergency Health Advisory Board meetings addressing a fictional pandemic set in the very near future. Participants grappled with how to respond to an epidemic located in one part of the world that then spread rapidly, becoming a pandemic with a higher fatality rate than COVID-19, and here's where it is, and disproportionately affecting children and young people. Participants were challenged to make urgent policy decisions with limited information in the face of uncertainty. Each problem and choice had serious health, economic, and social ramifications. So, yeah, these nut jobs are now planning to use our children to lock us down because, again, before it was, don't get grandma and grandpa sick. Now it's going to be save the children. You watch.
I was just going to say, and they flipped the script right there, because before it was like, no, don't worry about it. Kids aren't really going to be affected by COVID, which they necessarily weren't. It was really the vaccine which it was in, but yeah, now they flipped the script and now they're coming after the children, which is just, yeah, I'm sorry. Well, there was a screenshot from that same thing you sent me, and it was, countries should prioritize efforts to increase trust in government and public health, improve public health communication efforts, increase the resiliency of populations to misleading information, and reduce the spread of harmful information. In future pandemics, we should continue to expect even more major disruptions from misinformation and disinformation. The WHO can be a globally trusted source, and it can share science and information widely. Again, they're already getting in front of this, and they're setting it up for any kind of contrary narrative to what they're about to lay out is going to be considered disinformation, probably Russian propaganda, whatever they're going to say. It's going to be some serious nonsense.
Yeah, and what they're talking, what you're referring to as far as the new sickness that's going around is called RSV, and it's
RSV. Yes, that's it.
Yeah, respiratory syncytial virus is I believe the way it's pronounced. Respiratory illnesses that are going around with kids, and luckily again my kids are have immune systems of Clydesdale, so they just got the sniffles a little bit and stuff while everybody else's kids are getting super sick. And I just pray that people will, hey, let's do this. Let's, as a group of people, maybe just do something different for your health. Like eat correctly and take some supplements and exercise, because obesity is literally driving all of this. If nobody was obese, bro, if 90%, say, of society, 80% of society even was not obese, they would have never been able to do this, because it was always, you and I are germ theory deniers, right? We're automatically domestic terrorists in that category, germ theory deniers, because the media is saying, and the World Health Organization and CDC are all saying the same thing. Wear a mask 6 feet apart, disinfect everything around you, and then in the next sentence they say, those who are obese and have comorbidities and numerous comorbidities like diabetes and this yada, 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 are obviously very vulnerable to this. So if everybody's immune system for the most part was strong and people were eating what they were supposed to eat and using supplements, by and large, wouldn't be nearly as sick as we are and wouldn't be obese like we are, and they just wouldn't have they wouldn't be able to scare the shit out of so many people.
Well, I was just going to say, they might even still get sick if they're, on their textbook healthy. But at the end of the day, when they get hit with this fear-based trauma, even if they're as healthy as the day is long, they're going to listen to these supposed authorities on how to feel better, how to be better, how to avoid this, and it's like, here we go now. And the fear-based trauma is going to work even more because they're talking about our children. And we're all very, very, sensitive when it comes to our children's health and well-being. I just find it interesting, and I'll be anxious to see how this plays out over the next several months, because like my daughter's school, like there's so many kids checked out sick. I don't know if that's true about the number of people in hospital now because of this RSV and flu, but it sounds like there's something else going around right now. And, I don't know when they're going to hit that switch as far as, hey, you guys, the fit has hit the shan again. We got to lock it down. We got to, I don't know what's going on because they're still doing that shit over in China, supposedly up things a little bit. But we're about to see a round 2, man. And like Pat has said, and like we've said many times, please protect your children. Protect your children. I mean, I'm just saying they're done with us, but they're kind of done with us older folk. We're not old, but we're older. They're coming after our kids.
Well, here's case in point. I get people when I talk about health. Okay, when I talk about health, how to stay healthy, how to get healthy, all these different things. I've had people. I had a guy who is a veteran and he's obese, friend of mine, and he said I got diagnosed with this, and this, and chronic pain and all these other things that are going on with his body, massive amounts of inflammation. And he said, I said, what'd the doctor say? He goes, he prescribed me, some Oxycontins and this and that, of course, And I said, huh. I go, we could probably take care of your issues. It doesn't happen overnight, but we could probably, if you maybe listen to me and eat what I tell you to eat and use some supplements that I tell you to use, you could probably, lose a bunch of weight and get rid of a lot of inflammation and you'll end up feeling a lot better. And he looked at me and goes, when you're a doctor, I'll fucking listen to you. And so,
yeah, I remember you said that. Which, my dad used to say, hard head makes a soft ass.
I said to him, I go, all I'm going to tell you is next time you go back to see your doctor, ask him his 4-point plan, 5-point plan, whatever it is on how he's going to get you off of Oxycontins and all the other shit he's got you on. How's that? And see if he's got an answer for you. Because I'm offering you an answer and a solution, and he's not offering you a solution at all, bro. You're going to stay like this until the day you die.
That's that kind of Stockholm syndrome we've talked about. We are, I mean, I'm not saying don't trust authority, but we're such slaves to.
Did you just encourage people to trust authority?
There are some authorities that are worth trusting, but they've ruined their credibility so many times throughout the years. And the medical industry tops that freaking list. What's one of the top 3 ways to die in this country? And that's under allopathic medical care. But I think even there's a couple on people slave to authority. And again, man, I think people just don't care. As long as they can go home, as long as their phone's working, their streaming services are working, their car's working, as long as they can still go to work, come home, all that bullshit. They just want to exist. They don't really want to live. And that's on them, and that's accountability we all have to take. But I think that's what allows so much of this to happen because, again, it's that kind of Stockholm syndrome. We listen to the same people who've lied to us over and over again. And in the list of what you talked about, that catastrophic contagion, the same players involved who were facilitated and created this last batch of bullshit, John Hopkins, Bill and Melinda Gates, they're spearheading this next round. And people will still fall for it to a large degree, hopefully to a less degree than what happened before. But again, man, that fear-based trauma, especially as it relates to your kids, man, you're going to get people to react. I don't know. We'll see this time, man, because we have a lot more people that are sniffing this out like a fart in a freaking court. We're not falling for it this time.
I sure hope not, but I can tell you this, that there's still going to be a massive amount of people who are, it's based on division as well, right? So we know that.
It is, for sure.
The thing is what I'm trying to get across to people. I'm just trying to get across to people that, listen, you're afraid to stand up because you're going to lose your job like I did. Okay, well, let me break the news to you that eventually when the supply chains are rusted shut, and the monetary system has collapsed and you're forced to go on digital currency and all the other things that are taking place right now behind the scenes, which we'll get to Executive Order 14067, which spells that all out, is that eventually you're not going to have a job to go to because the economy is imploding. And I mean,
that's what I'm saying. People's comfortability is their most priority list. It's like, let me maintain my status right now, my job, my mortgage, all this other bullshit. They don't see the forest for the trees into the larger context of what's going on. As you just said, if your job's your top priority, let me tell you something there, champ or young lady, whoever, you're about to not have a job, potentially. And then where you lie then?
Well, that's where they transition into, which they blamed on that Atlanta Hawks announcer having his thing, not only dehydration, but it was climate sickness.
Sweet God, is that what they said?
Oh yeah, they've been trying to pass off the climate sickness bullshit. More strokes, more heart attacks from climate change, all this other stuff where people just don't go, wait, because, when I go back to climate change stuff, before any of the COVID lockdown started, it was at least a year before that. They were already laying the groundwork and planting thoughts in people's heads. They sent home paperwork with my middle daughter, who was, I think, a sophomore at the time in high school.
Yeah.
And after I read this paper, I went to the school board and raised holy hell with them and told them they absolutely need to stop this indoctrination. It was 10 ways that a family can help mitigate climate crisis. And it was, don't use water as much, all this other stuff, which makes perfect sense, And it gets to number 6, and I couldn't believe what I read. It said, get vaccinated to help mitigate the coming climate crisis. And I thought, so I went to the school board meeting. I asked them, I said, can any of you tell me how getting vaccinated can mitigate, some of the effects of climate crisis? Does anybody half of them have medical degrees. They have, college graduates at least, minimum. But they just look at me like zombies.
Well, and they just regurgitate points that someone they think is smarter than them sent to them. But this is the same thing Biden said, I don't know, a couple years ago or whatever. It's like, hey, in hurricane season, one of your top priorities needs to be being vaccinated. Like, what's the fuck a hurricane got to do with being vaccinated? But again, it's coming here, ladies and gentlemen. The best of the Conspiracy Farm will be up here on Redwood soon. I strongly suggest people listen to our episode with Rosa Corey talking about Agenda 21, because she said a part of all of this agenda is making sure you're vaccinated as it relates to climate change and this, the fourth industrial revolution, et cetera. They want us vaccinated as a part of all
Marxist talking points, all Marxist talking points, all marching to the same drummer, all media repeating over and over and over. And we've got to look, if people don't see by now that there's, nothing, the people that run this planet are absolutely satanic pedophiles, literally psychopaths. I mean, we have to agree at some point.
Some dark artists without a shadow of a doubt.
I just want to have shirts made that say, I don't follow health orders by pedophiles. From pedophiles. Right?
Well, and not even just pedophiles, unelected bureaucrats. These people weren't even elected to do any of these things. Fauci was never elected. Bill Gates was the WHO. These are all selected individuals to implement these global medical edicts on every human being. I mean, God, we saw what happened in Australia, New Zealand, China. I mean, it's next level what they've done. And they're trying to do it again. They're trying to tease out round 2. And it's really going to be incumbent on all of us to literally give that pushback. Non-violent civil disobedience, just non-compliance, man. And war games. What did they say at the end of war games? The best way to win is not to play. And, control your communities, man.
Right.
Don't be sending your kid to a school that's going to expel you for not. We need to be going to our meetings, our school board meetings, so these things can't be implemented. Think globally, act locally. It has to start happening on a local freaking level. On a federal level, I mean, I'm not saying it's a lost cause, but I mean, they've been planning this for so very long. So the pushback really needs to be happening locally, and we need to be everyone needs to be known who their sheriff is, who their county commissioner is, county executive, board of health, commissioners or whatever it is. And, the strength is in numbers, man.
Yeah.
Don't be falling for this okie doke. Like you said, how are we still falling for this? How are people, whatever. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask just for, your own mitigation of whatever.
Just so I don't have to look at your
trying to keep yourself from getting COVID.
Just so I don't have to look at your green teeth. How's that?
Well, I mean, but if you want to do it, like I said, I don't care. As long as you're not hurting anybody, do what you want to do. But it belies a certain larger, I mean, it's a big tell when, I've got my booster. I'm still wearing a mask. Like, okay, cool. The vax doesn't work now, right? We know that. We now know that the mask, your cloth. They told everyone the mask didn't work when freaking Fauci was on 60 Minutes when this shit kicked off. Masks are useless, but here you are. You got these Muppets around here rocking their fucking mask like it's going to stop something. And here they are again, round 2, man. We said this ages ago. They're going to take, not ages, a few years ago. They're going to take it off our neck for a hot second, month, 2, couple years, but they're going to do this again.
Right. So
here we are.
Let's move into, I mean, this is a many-pronged attack, of course, but the Balenciaga thing, the children, our children, it goes back to our children again, just a different angle of attack. If you want to talk a little bit about those psychopaths.
Well, I mean, we've been talking about how this planet's been ran by the dark artists for centuries, if not longer. And, Balenciaga was started by Cristobal Balenciaga, but he was basically tapped by, what was her name? Marquise de Casa Torres. She was a Spanish black nobility person that, cause Cristobal was working with his mother, who was a seamstress, and, Marquise de Casa Torres tapped his mother to be her main. He was in the game for a very long time. And so around his age being like 10, 15 years old, Marquisa de Casa Torres came through the studio, and he was very insightful on patterns and all these attention to detail. So she made him his seamstress. But at the end of the day, this woman was towards Spanish black nobility, but black nobility in general. And, I don't want to get into too much about black nobility right now, but these are your ancient bloodlines that go back very deep.
The Orsini's are going to have you killed. You keep running your mouth, bro.
Well, it's not. This is public information. This isn't even anything that's hidden. So anyway, you hear to 2022, and now these guys are using ads. Very, very dark ads with children, and this gets into, and all of this is happening right now. We're seeing more about Podesta art. We're seeing more about Maria Abramovich. They're telling us.
Yeah, they're not
in another
at all.
In fashion that our kids, they're not afraid of us at all, and our kids have targets on their back. And it's dark, man. It's absolutely dark. When you look at this art, you look at what these guys do behind closed doors, it's next level, dude. It's absolutely next level. And they're preying on our freaking children. And this is just one way they're preying on our children. But
this is where I've said many times, and somebody finally caught onto it as well. They put out a video. I noticed, I took my kids to watch Monsters, Inc. when they were younger, right? The first Monsters, Inc. and all of that. And I went, wait a minute. This is a movie about scaring the shit out of children and storing the energy and powering your city off of fear. Like, this is sick. This is some sick shit. And that's what they do. Is it a parallel to the adrenochrome thing, scaring children and draining blood?
Absolutely it is. Yeah. It's another way how they illustrate what they're doing. And that's the wicked genius about it, man. They're telling us what they're doing, but we just don't. And I've said this many times. There are people who don't believe that, SDA, I think it's called, satanic ritual abuse, SRA, or the adrenochrome thing. If they don't think that's real, that's cool. That's fine. People didn't think Pizzagate was real. No, Hillary Clinton isn't running a pizza child sex thing out of it. Okay, maybe she's not, but that's not. We can't throw the baby out with the bathwater and say like none of this exists. We know they're trading in kids' body parts.
And we know that what they use the language: pizza, hot dog, pepperoni. They use that for ordering children.
Yes.
Period. End of story.
Yeah.
That's not.
Without a doubt. There's just been too much. You talk to Noreen Gosh and tell her this stuff doesn't exist. Noreen Gosh, who's the mother of Johnny Gosh, go online and find out, look at the movies like Why Johnny Can't Come Home, etc. I mean, her kid was kidnapped at like 12, 13 years old and put into basically a king ring where the elites were basically, feeding off of children sexually. And whatever. It's just gets even deeper than that. Like the movie Hostel, how these rich elites go and take people and do whatever, torture, kill. I mean, it's next freaking level. And like I was about to say, for people who don't believe this exists, that's fine. Don't. That's a testament to your humanity, and that's good for you because you don't see, and that's not even condescending. You don't see or you can't fathom how dark these individuals go. It's been happening for a very long time. Nothing is new under the sun. They've just found very different ways of masking what they're doing, and oftentimes they're seemingly benevolent energy and their intentions mask their much more malevolent intentions. So, we got to start discerning more and protecting our kids better. I mean, this is just one part of it. Balenciaga, all this shit. I mean, I don't know, man. They're coming after our kids, and that should be beyond unacceptable.
Yes. Well, to recognize the problem is the first thing. And if they don't recognize the problem and don't want to admit it, then they're never going to help us defend their own children. I'm not going to be able to help them defend their children. So that's the part of that. But that, it is what it is, right? But let's go on to the financial aspect of some of the things that are going on. No. First, I want to cover the renewal of the NDAA. You saw the Republicans were fighting with the Democrats about saying that, for them to renew the NDAA, military members who did not want to get the COVID vax needed to be allowed back in the military if they wanted back in, and without that mandate attached to it. And apparently the administration had agreed to that part of it. So, but here's the point: is right now people who vote Republican are cheering and going, yeah, rah, yeah, the good guys, the good guys, the good guys, but they voted to renew the NDAA that allows for propaganda in the media and a lot of other horrible shit. We're calling mothers who go to school board meetings and raise hell with school boards domestic terrorists. Well, what's it say in the NDAA about droning domestic terrorists? Right?
Without a shadow of a doubt. This has been renewed by I'm not sure when it was, but I mean, this is again, we get so caught up in the extreme tribalism, the right, left, etc. This document or this mandate or whatever you want to call it, executive order, I'm not sure exactly how that plays out with the NDAA. It allows for indefinite detentions of potential terrorists. Allows no due process for potential terrorists. It allows potential assassination. It allows the legalization of propaganda on American citizens. Now, great, we want terrorists to be looked at and surveilled, etc. But there's a fine line now of who they're calling terrorists.
But how can the terrorists in the government surveil themselves? They're not going to do that.
Well, you said it, not me. But, I mean, at the end of the day, again, this goes back to the fear-based conditioning. They scared the shit out of us during 9/11, said XYZ is a terrorist. We need to set up all these draconian measures to go after these terrorists. And as that morphed, it did wind up morphing individuals who just didn't agree with certain narratives. Moms are now potential domestic terrorists because they want to protect their kids. Anybody who speaks against any official narrative, we've seen, I don't know how much credence I give to these Twitter files or whatever, but we know what they've been doing. You and I suffered it many years over time doing the conspiracy farm. The shadow blacklisting, the deplatforming, the demonetization. We know what's happening. It's been going on for a long freaking time. And if you think Elon Musk is going to be your savior, I got some lakefront property or oceanfront property in Iowa for you.
Right. So people should start looking into, the NDAA a little bit more and talking to their representatives in Washington D.C. about this stuff, because this is bad.
It's on its face unconstitutional, anti-American, anti-Bill of Rights, and it's been renewed by however many different presidents. I don't want to get too deep into it, but this really bugs me about how we LARP about our rights. We do have these rights, and we need to assert them. But we have, as I've said, they have been using the Constitution for toilet paper for freaking decades. Do executive orders, national security memorandums, et cetera, things like the NDAA. They give us this false notion that we're free and there's no other bigger slave than those falsely believe they're free. But while at the same time, they're just doing all these different measures which show us they don't care about our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. Look at what they've done to the First Amendment. Look at what they've done to the freedom of assembly. The NDAA in and of itself, it's just straight up anti-American, anti-constitutional, I wouldn't even say legislation, but mandates or whatever. But nobody even knows about it, champ.
Right.
Well, not to say nobody knows about it, but nobody really even cares. Or I wouldn't say care, but it gets swept under the rug, and we wind up caring about all these things we shouldn't care about. I don't care about a middle freaking fashion designer / rapper and what he says about. I mean, if he's going to say it and it's erroneous, I get it. It's fucked up, some of the things he's saying, but that's on our radar about what Kanye or whatever his name West is saying. Who's the people that Ghislaine Maxwell was trafficking children to? We know nothing about
right.
The Epstein Black Book that had all these heavy hitters in it, but we know all about R. Kelly. We know all about freaking, and I'm not even saying it's racial because I'm saying two black dudes, but our priorities are all fucked up. we trip about shit we shouldn't trip on, but we are absolutely silent as mice about things that we should be absolutely losing our mind about.
Well, I can say when you're talking about raising hell about children and Ghislaine Maxwell and all the stuff that went on Rape Island and everything else, MMA star Joel Bauman is being canceled currently. You know, he was calling out Jimmy Kimmel, right? And calling out the media, calling out Hollywood, calling out everybody and saying, you're all pedophiles unless we get that list of people. We want that definitive list from the court case so that we know who to go after, right? And he's been canceled. He can't get fights now. He can't get fights anywhere. And, you know, he wasn't a UFC champion. Like Ed Adesanya. Ed Adesanya said it once. Ed Adesanya said, you know, where is the list? I want to know where the list is, which God bless Ed Adesanya for saying it, you know, as a UFC champion. But Joel Bauman, who's an amazing fighter and a very, very, stand-up guy, he can't get fights anywhere. I say we get him in caged aggression if we have to and, you know, get him a bunch of money that way, but, one way or another. But that's the thing is he's being canceled for standing up for children. Think of that. And that's what's going on in the world. And the one thing that I have noticed is not a lot of people come to your rescue when you get canceled. They just don't give a shit. They don't give a shit.
What? Well, and it goes back to what I was saying. Everybody's too comfortable. The courage of our convictions takes a back seat to our comfortability. Everyone should be rushing to this man's aid and to his defense, or anybody who's speaking truth to power, but nobody wants to because we're in a culture where you can lose your livelihood. And you, someone who did absolutely nothing going to Washington, D.C., wasn't even close to the Capitol, got murked and scorched because you were just there. And just the perception of that and the metrics that of just you being there. You had no control of what picture you were taking, what fucking symbol. You're Pat Miletich. You take thousands and thousands of pictures every year. But somehow this was worthy of your cancellation just being in proximity. And that's, the whole guilty by association, just being in proximity to whatever madness that was going down. And that's just the tipping point, man.
Yeah. So,
let's talk about Police, 1984, George Orwell. It's real. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Let's talk about something. I want to talk about this before we get off of here because this is super important. That I was actually able to get some state legislators, a state senator from one state, and then a couple of representatives from our home state of Iowa to actually listen to me and go, wow, you're actually onto something here. So I text a state senator, and I don't know, stop me if I've talked about this before, and I said, have you considered sponsoring a bill to ban weather modification in your state? And he said, you know who our friend is from Illinois, probably. Our good friend who's been on our old podcast. So anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
He texted back and said, I don't know anything about what you're talking about. And so I said, and this is what I want our listeners to do, is Google search weather modification companies, and you'll have a shitload of them come up. After you research them and the planes that they're using, they've got planes, the designs and everything on their websites, all kinds of stuff. Then do Google search and research on weather modification legislation in Washington, D.C. and your home state. Then after you do that, you've gotten that far into the research and proving that it does exist and that legislation has permitted it. That then research weather modification what compounds, what chemicals, so to speak, are being sprayed in the aerosols from these aircraft. And you'll pull up barium and aluminum oxide and some other things. And then I want you to research the effects of barium and aluminum oxide on the soil, on crops and plants, on wildlife, on livestock, and human health. Just the effects of barium and aluminum oxide on human health are so detrimental that I think most people would shit themselves if they learned about it. Aluminum oxide alone is very, very detrimental to human respiratory systems and all living mammals and birds' respiratory systems. So they say...
What are we suffering from now? Respiratory illness is interesting.
Yes, exactly. And then we go a little bit further into it and we say, okay, they say that they're creating cloud cover to keep temperatures down. Well, then people have to realize that we need sunlight on our skin to create vitamin D, which is very instrumental in our immune systems. And then we also need sunlight to grow crops, grow enough food to feed the masses. So I want you to call your legislator after you do the research and compile the information. Call your representative in your state, from your area, whatever, and say, I want you to sponsor a bill banning weather modification in our state. Make it a no-fly zone. Whatever you got to do, I want it stopped. Because I don't know, for those out there that have been or haven't been paying attention, look up in the skies and see these jets, doing checkerboards across the sky, and then all of a sudden it's cloudy for, the rest of the day. It's so obvious.
And and again, it's not one of those, it's public information, ladies. I've said this, I think, one of our last couple episodes. Look up John Brennan addressing the Council of Foreign Relations, talking about geoengineering and weather technology, cloud seeding. Look up G. Edward Griffin's documentary, What in the World Are They Spraying?, talking about this very, very thing. Check out as soon as the archives of the Conspiracy Farm come up on on Red Voice Media here, look up our with Jim Lee. We get deep into it on all the different legislations. Even in the UN, they've signed different documents saying you cannot use weather technology. You can't weaponize weather technology. So it's not even a matter of if it exists. That's why it's so funny when people. I actually had a conversation with somebody at work, there's no weather weapons. You're a grown ass fucking man, dude. I get it. I'm not saying the earth is flat or any nonsense. This is easily discernible, track downable information that geotechnology, geoengineering, cloud seeding definitely exists. They do it in Abu Dhabi or in certain desert countries to create rain, because they don't get much rain. So it's not a matter of if it exists. Just go find out that it does. And they're using it.
It literally parallels with, biological, bioweapons laboratories. Okay, we know they're weaponizing viruses, but who are they weaponizing them for? Pretty obvious by now that it's for us. Chemical warfare. Well, it's pretty obvious. People are suffering from an overload of chemicals in their cells, right? The disease and obesity and everything else is proof of that. So when they talked about weaponizing weather to be able to create a massive thunderstorm over, your enemy's troop movements, right? Whatever. That was what was visualized. When in reality, they've weaponized the weather against the citizens. So chemical, biological, and weather have all been weaponized and directed at us. So that's the reality of all of it.
The subsequent effect, as we've talked about many times, our food, our water, our air, our soil are tainted because of these technologies. And that's the thing, of course it's not an overt technical program, but they've been using biochemical warfare on us for a very, very, very long time. And the proof is in, our soil quality, our water quality, our soil quality. This isn't a puzzle, man. This really isn't a puzzle. It's just, we just have to recognize that things are as bad as they are. And, going back to who runs this shit, man, the eugenicists hate all of us. They will divide us into whatever group they can to keep us distracted. But believe me, they hate every single one of us.
Yeah, they hate the left and the right. They look at us as lower than the lowest life forms.
Everything that we are divided on, they hate you too. You're whatever, binary, polyamorous, black, white, female, red, blue. It's about dividing us into the groups and then playing the groups off against each other while they continue their nefarious actions of decimating every single one of us, laughing their ass off at you and I, not little you and I, arguing about who's going to win at WrestleMania 3. Is it Hulkster or Andre the fucking Giant? I'm telling you, I think the Hulkster's got it, dude. He's younger. Andre's family. They actually have these literal conversations about the nuance of the rig system or the rig game. I hate to use that reference all the time, but I'm a big old school professional wrestling fan. But I digress. They hate us all, man.
They're doing it. They're doing it to everybody. The chemicals, the biological, and the weather. It's happening to everyone. They're not differentiating. They're doing it to everyone. And so just for God's sakes, wake up, people. Let's wake up.
Well, and again, we talked about this, man. A lot of the larger geopolitical stuff we cannot control, but we can control how we're This is why we have all these conversations about self-sufficiency, permaculture, if you can do it, growing your own food. Like, the only way to really know that your food, your water is good is to grow it and take care of it and cultivate it yourself. Is it going to be an 100% silver bullet? Probably not, but it's going to be better than what the fuck we're doing now. Lining up at McDonald's, which, again, we're not going to save everybody. Not everybody's going to want to take care of themselves and create a better future for themselves and their family. But the people who do, start creating communities, man. Reach out to each other. This is what's going to save us, man. This is absolutely what's going to save us. The power in numbers, local, smaller level. Your smaller communities, your smaller municipalities, get to know your sheriff, get to know your county commissioners, et cetera, and, create groups that you guys can have these kind of conversations, because that's where the real stem is going to be, the tide's going to be stemmed, is when we start pushing back local.
Yeah, and last but not least, we'll talk about Biden's executive order. It's not new in the news, but it's come back up because it's getting ready to be implemented. The digital currency by the central banks, Wells Fargo, and other American banks are involved, obviously. But Executive Order 14067, people can look that up. Read Section 4, where they talk about, the surveillance, mass surveillance of people, monitoring your bank accounts, dictating what you can and cannot buy. There's a lot of stuff in there, that is the social credit system is what it is. They're implementing it and testing it on American citizens. And it's a soft approach to it initially, but everybody who banks with those banks, I strongly encourage you to leave those banks. Pull your money and go somewhere else that's not implementing this.
Check out your local credit unions for sure.
Yes.
Well, I mean, even going back to the beginning of credit cards, that was it wasn't a digital currency, but that was like how we got into digital transactions, et cetera. And, what we're about to see now, and you're absolutely right, man. We said this before. China is the model for where we're going. I've said, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but that's where we're going. Fiat currency is going to the wayside, and we are moving towards digital currency. And as we talk to our boy Angelo, I mean, we're moving from a resource-based system to an energy-based system where they're monitoring everything, and everything we're going to be able to do is going to be based off our of energy, and we're going to have credits, if you will. And if you step out of line, we're going to have facial recognition cameras to get you can't fly, can't ride the bus, the social credit system, the UBI. This is all going towards Agenda 21, Agenda 2030. You guys have to look that up. The game is changing right before our eyes, man. Before our eyes. And, hard head makes a soft ass. If you don't get it, then you don't get it. But again, in the age of information, ignorance is a choice. We have been told and we've been shown where this is headed. So it's up to us to get it together for, if we don't care about it for ourselves, at least our kids, man. I got a grandson.
Yeah.
Now I'm a I at least want to tighten my shit up for the world that we're leaving our children and our children's children. Because like I said, I think they're probably a little bit done with us, But, this is why the propaganda part is so huge and the conditioning part is so huge, because they don't have to use bullets anymore. They're going after hearts and minds. And these guys are of social engineering and psyops, et cetera. And that's what they're going for, man. That asymmetrical warfare where they don't have to shoot you in the face or get rid of you, because that's, they don't want to get rid of you. They want you around, but they want you thinking a very certain way. And that's what we're seeing right now, left and right.
Yes, sir. So anyway, Jeff, anything else in closing that you'd like to talk about before we close this episode down?
I don't believe so. I just want to give a big thanks to Red Voice Media for giving us this platform. Pat and I have been stewing for several years as we shut the Conspiracy Farm down and transition to more positive. Granted, this conversation has a certain dark tone to it, but ultimately it's about taking charge of your own life and your own survivability and your own self-sustainability for yourself, for your children, for your families, and your communities. Again, we can't control. When you talked about this latest new event, 21, spearheaded out of Belgium, we would be remiss if we didn't recognize that Brussels, Belgium is the head of the EU, and all that goes into what the EU is and how it was formulated, et cetera. They do not have our best interest in mind, ladies and gentlemen, and they're literally about to revisit what they did a couple years ago. And it'll only succeed as much as we allow it to succeed. When you get into that Bugs Life movie, I forget what it was. If the bigger bugs were like,
if you allow one to stand up, they'll all stand up.
They'll all stand up. If they realize there's more of them than there are of us, we're in trouble. And that's what really needs to happen. And again, everyone just needs to, it's a mind thing, man. Don't be so comfortable that you allow your kids to be put into this nonsense where
and don't allow yourself to be weaponized against your fellow Americans.
Bueno. Absolutely. And that's a very much larger point, champ. The divisions that are going on here, ladies and gentlemen, are next level. And I get it. We're extremely tribal human beings, but we have to understand that we are being played off against each other while they laugh their asses off and watch us fight each other. We've got to wake up and find out the commonality within us all, man. You know, Kennedy said, it was like, what kind of a peace do I mean and what kind of a peace do we seek? We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's futures. We are all mortal, or something to that effect. I mean, way more in common than we do different. And as soon as we can realize that and recognize that it's about our kids, man. It's about our freaking kids. But I don't know. We'll see what happens, man. We'll see what happens.
All right. So, you know, at least spread the word about this podcast, about Red Voice Media. Number one, we appreciate you guys tuning in, and also spread the word. Don't follow the orders. Don't follow the mandates that are coming. Please keep your business open. Don't wear a mask. Stand up to this, and let's try and surf some freedom for once.
Absolutely. It only these programs, these are only allowed to succeed if we participate in them. Again, the best way to win is not to play, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and talk to you soon, Jeffrey.
Absolutely. Love you, brother.